do that is, what kind of recipes we'd go for, so on and so forth. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start and this is another reason, Nigel, because I feel like people will get tired of this, right? I think there was just an article on New York Times about how people are getting sick of the quarantine, and like I get it, and so I don't think there's enough new things past the novelty of doing classes that like I can provide that, you know, would warrant me doing one every single week. So that's just my thoughts. I mean, I could be wrong, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pour myself a cocktail, and it's just going to be the three of us for now. I'm going to walk through a couple of the menus that I put together. So the format of today is quite different. I'm just going to go through an exercise on how I put together menus, and then the rest of the time, I'm literally just going to prepare what I usually do on Sundays, is just like fuck around in the kitchen. And if you guys want to like follow along, that's cool. My roommate's going to do a workout class around 2. So it might get a little loud, and that's why I'm just gonna like play some music and just cook. And if you guys got questions, I'll look at the comments once in a while. But if y'all are also cooking, whatever you're cooking on Sunday, hey, it could just be us cooking today. Cool. All right. So cocktail today, pina colada. I tried experimenting with this for this whole week, is to make clarified cocktails, and what that really does is you're using a dairy product. So that could be milk, it could be coconut milk, to remove the impurities of a cocktail. And impurities isn't bad, right? Impurities gives flavor, it gives color, but sometimes you want to be able to remove all that so you get a very clear cocktail. In this case, pina colada, it has coconut milk, it has rum, it has syrup, so it's going to be dark. And so what we do with the dairy is to remove the impurities. You curdle it using a citrus, and the result is, you know, this isn't the best. This is my first try, but you could see this used to be dark brown. I'm going to hold it to the light. This used to be dark brown, and now it's more like a pale yellow. Here, let me pour it into this glass so you can see. So it has the flavors of a pina colada, but it doesn't look like a pina colada. And that's kind of what we're going for. So that's the cocktail we made today. See, look how clear that is. This could be a lot clearer. I think we could get it down to like a really clear white, which is really the impressive stuff. A lot of fancy restaurants, which I do not work in one, will get this down to almost, it looks like water, and that's the cool thing, right? If you could get that to do that. So Nigel, you've been saying I've been fancy all week, so you know what, for once I'm gonna live up to the name. I'm put some candied sorrel up in there. I might put some bitters. This little bottle right here cost like $30. I swear I like lost my left nut, and I thought I couldn't pay rent after buying this thing, but you know what, it is worth it. And it lasts a while, so if you want to get some bitters, it can make your thing fancy. So cheers. All right, let's move over here, because you guys already know the format of these things. Let's talk a little bit, and then I'm going to show you a couple of techniques that I use to build your menus. I think we're at the point where people are starting to feel like, okay, maybe now is when I could really experiment with my cooking, and how do I be more creative? You know, I think oftentimes people are like, oh yeah, but you're a chef and you're creative. I'm like, no, that's not true. So we're gonna show you a couple of things today. If it's your first time joining us, this is Hidden Apron at Home. This is not a cooking class per se where we go through recipes. I always have to put this caveat in the very beginning that I am not a chef. I don't proclaim to be one. I think I'm a pretty good cook. There's a lot of shows already out there that are talking about specific recipes, new techniques, and really why I'm here is to provide a more non-chef view on cooking so that you cook more at home, right? I think there's certain things from my life, you know, being an accountant, being in tech, that I've leveraged in cooking that helps me get in the kitchen a lot more. So just as a recap, our first session 4 weeks ago was talking about confidence and how do we view cooking as more of a progressive play, picking ingredients and recipes that you can get familiar with. And then the second week, we talked about efficiency. So how do you set up your station? You know, you always hear the French word like mise en place. So how do you set up, how do you get everything in place, but to your objective? And then last week, we talked about flexibility. So how do we think in terms of templates? There's actually a great article on Serious Eats about a week ago, talking about cooking in components, right? I used the term modules last week. I showed you some of the components that I have in here, like collard greens are always in my fridge. I always have some sort of syrup for cocktails. Like Nigel and I were talking about this yesterday, like ginger syrup you could use in cocktails, you could use in baking, you could use in dessert. You could use in so many applications. So thinking in terms of components and modules instead of single recipes is really going to help you cook better, even if it's not a quarantine. So this week, I wanted to address creativity. Now, big caveat before I show you the process I use to build menus is that creativity doesn't have to be exercised every single time you cook, right? I think there's this pressure right now like, oh, I should be baking the greatest British bake-off cake every week. And oh my God, this is too boring. I can't possibly post it. Because this is true. I actually have friends who are like, I can't post it. It looks too ugly or too basic. And it's complete bullshit, right? You don't have to feel this urge of inspiration every time you cook. Like, no one feels that. Nobody. And so even for me, I don't consider myself particularly creative. And so when I have to do a menu for a pop-up, there's certain things that I use from my days in college that help me construct a menu that seems creative, it seems inspired, but really there is already a kind of a template that I use, and it's useful for me when I work with the chefs, whether they're professional or not, to try to get people to think of cooking as not just like, oh my God, I need to have a certain culinary like level. And it becomes more of a fun exercise in storytelling, right? So I'm going to show you the technique, and then I'm going to show you how we've applied it to our past menus and where it went wrong, where it went right, and how you can use this the next time you want to try to exercise, so to speak, creativity. I don't know, do these letters appear backwards to you guys? Are these backwards right now? Because otherwise I'll flip the camera. Nigel, you're always the first one to answer, so you're my check, bro. Someone tell me. I think that's backwards. So I'm going to flip this around and redo it. Yeah, it's backwards. All right, cool. All right, here's what we're going to do. Boom. Okay, much better. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is the template that we use before every pop-up, and take into account that when we do Hidden Apron pop-ups, I used to actually mandate that 90% of the staff has to be non-professional. Because again, what we wanted to do, our thesis was anyone can cook, right? Whether you went to CIA or you know, Le Cordon Bleu, like anyone can cook, whether you're an accountant or not. So this was a way for me to at least give a sense of control and creativity to people who always think that they can't cook. And the way you do that is by creating limits. And so you might think that's kind of counterintuitive, right? Like, if I'm supposed to be creative, shouldn't I have the option to do whatever I want? Which is actually not true. You know, you get paralyzed by all the options. And I think the best and most creative things come out when you create artificial constraints. So what do I mean by constraints, right? Check out these pajamas, guys. This is what I've been rocking this whole quarantine season. Okay, when you want to create constraints, you know, the constraints that I'm going to write down may not be the ones you want to use, but they're just useful for me to think about. So one of the constraints I use, for example, is color, right? So think of constraints in terms of like attributes of your meal, whether it's a multi-course meal or a single course, whatever. So there's color. I like to use Filipino-based dishes because a lot of our pop-ups are, you know, Filipino-inspired. Filipino base. I might use something like temperature. I might use something like plating complexity, right? And what these do is create kind of a grid so that as I make each dish, right, I can check across, meaning do I have a balance? You know, I think one of the first pop-ups we did, I realized that almost everything I made was brown or orange because it was like a Filipino stew. Is there a variation in temperature? So am I going from like warm to cold as a cleanser to a hot main or a cold dessert? And do I have a variation in the complexity? So if everything has to be like Michelin star tweezer food, you're gonna get into this higher risk where you slow down in the kitchen. So this was actually one of the ways after our first pop-ups to make sure we're not like overdoing things. So let's say I have a 3-course meal. Right? And the application to this at home, you know, I don't use this for home cooking all the time. This is just ways where if you're doing like maybe a Thanksgiving dinner and you want to be a little more creative, use something like this. And where did this come from? I was lucky enough to do a design course in college, and this is one of the ways we brainstormed a lot. So let's say I arbitrarily just threw out some colors, right? I want something red, then I want a green, and then I want a white. I don't know, let's say I'm doing it, we were talking about bolognese earlier, so let's say we were gonna do something Italian, right? And I wanted to bring my Filipino roots to this. And so I wanted to start maybe with a soup. So for the Filipinos out there, maybe I wanted to start with pancit molo. I want to do a adobo. And then at the end, I want to do a halo-halo, right? So that's going to be my base. And then the temperature, I wanted, you know what, just to throw a wrench into all this, what if I made my first course, even though pancit molo is a soup, into cool, and then I want a hot, and then I want a cold. And then complexity, I want to go with simple, hard, simple. This gives me more parameters to work with than simply starting white space and saying, what do I come up with, right? Because now this can prompt discussions between the team, right? If I focus on the first one, pancit molo, I want it red. What can make things red? I could use annatto seeds, I could use saffron, I could even use tomatoes if it's in season. The question now is, how do I make a pancit molo, which is traditionally a pork-based noodle soup, which is piping hot, into a cool one? So maybe I might do something like a gazpacho using elements of pancit molo. So your rice noodles, your pork, if you use shrimp, you know, how do I use those elements to create a new dish? So the resulting dish here might seem so different, it might seem new, and a lot of times people are like, how do you come up with this stuff? And really, this is how I come up with dishes with friends. And you know, it's not actually just me dictating how this goes. The fun part about using this technique is if you have a team of 5, is having people input what they think should be on this grid. So if someone told me instead of adobo, you know, when I work with Josh, which is one of the best reasons why I love working with him, is, you know, his culinary upbringing is very different from mine. And so a lot of Filipino foods he's never tasted, he'll input something else that he has. Eating in, you know, Jackson Heights here in Queens, it's a very different culinary base of Filipino than Saudi Arabia. And so I think this is the template that I like to use. I'm going to just check if there's any questions. Tweezer food. I'll need these notes. Okay, so, oh my God, man. Trina I have not seen you in years. Holy crap. Just reading the comments. Mario, yeah, I actually wrote this in a blog earlier, I think a couple of years back, so I'll make this available. I'm going to try to create a template so you guys can also use this. But let me show you how this actually applies to real events, right? Because this is all kind of theory until you see it. So I was just commenting to my roommate that I didn't realize we've done so many pop-ups, and I don't know, maybe it's just me and imposter syndrome. I still feel like a beginner at this kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you one of our earlier menus and how we applied that technique, and then one of our later menus and how we applied that technique. So as you can see what we did here, this is one of our earlier menus, right? I have here the temperature, I have here the components, I had here the name, right? It's kind of small, but maybe I could share this later on. And then who's cooking it. So right from the get-go, I can already tell if I had applied this technique a little bit better, the fact that this is super unbalanced, right? Look how many components there are in this one freaking dish. This was the pop-up where we stayed till 3 a.m. washing dishes because of this. And I guess when you start off, I was very insecure as a cook. I try to add as many things as possible into a dish, and that's what happens. So if I look at the resulting menu from this, and by the way, I didn't come up with this. I had a team that was mostly non-chef, and the theme of this is Last Supper, because my co-founder Ricky was leaving to Seattle. So I asked everyone for words or things that reminded them of like this idea of finality, right? So like Noah's Ark, right? Or a farewell to childhood. So and I didn't write these. These were written by people who claimed they were not chefs. So someone put mac and cheese because that's kind of their childhood thing, and we collaborated on that. And it turned out into this menu, right? So when people see a menu like this, they're like, how did you come up with this? It's from this structure. Now, if I had looked at this, given what I know now, right? This was many, many years ago. If I looked at this, I'd be like, holy crap, there's too much beef or too much meat. We have a braised beef that takes a while to cook. Roast chicken, that takes a while to cook. Brownie, which is baked, that takes some time to cook. And this is why we stayed late trying to clean up this one. And The more you know, the more you know, right? And so that's why in future pop-ups, one of the new limits I put was 2 ounces of meat per person for the whole meal across 5 courses. Work with it. And it's actually made us a lot more creative in the kitchen. So, the applications to this are really powerful, I think. Here's a menu we did for Philippine Independence Day. And the whole theme was, what would happen if the Philippines was not colonized and we did the colonizing? So, tapas, for example, pinchos, which is a very Spanish thing. If you go to the tapas bars there, we said, what if we colonized Spain? What would this look like? And so the photos are somewhere on Instagram. I'll find them, but you could see how powerful this technique gets to be when you think of food as more of a the way I see food is it's a data storage device, right? It's encoding history, it's encoding memories, it's encoding stories. And so if you think of it that way and expand the definition of cooking, it makes it a lot more creative. It makes you look more creative, even though really you're using some sort of structure. In fact, a community organizer here in New York said this menu made him understand what it means to decolonize your palate, which was really, it's a flattering thing to hear. And then this was our latest menu, probably the last one before we went into quarantine, is working with Chef Josh. We asked what are our favorite neighborhoods in New York that mean something to us. So K-Town, Chinatown, East Village for me. So remember, going back to that grid, right? We picked neighborhoods as one of our parameters and tried to cross-grid that against Filipino dishes. So palabok, if you guys know, it's a shrimp gravy on rice noodles. What would that look like if we crossed it with East Village, where a lot of the ramen shops that we used to frequent are? And so we ended up making a pancit palabok with really, really high-quality ramen noodles. We made a tsukemen dip, which is a very rich dip. It does not look anything like palabok, but it tastes like palabok, and now there's a story to it. And this is what makes the pop-up very unique. So I'm not saying you should go do a pop-up. Like, if you do, go ahead. But, to the argument that, I don't want to cook because I'm not a creative person, well, I think this kind of brainstorming technique will help. Again, I didn't come up with this. This came up from design workshops in college. We were doing a lot of innovation work with companies, coming up with new products. So that's really where it came from. I hope that's helpful. Does anyone have questions? Because I know this is very different, right? You won't see. I think this is the part where I can confidently say I'm a little more advantageous in is when you ask chefs how they come up with ideas. It tends to go into the esoteric, and a little more romantic, and it's hard for me as a I guess more boring thinker to think like that. And so that's one. I'm just one sec, guys, because I'm just trying to adjust this fucking camera holder. Give me one sec. Oh, actually, one more thing before I go into talking about some other stuff that I want to talk about. There's actually a technique. If you guys are I'm gonna put you guys down. Nigel, I saw your comment about what about doing classes that are deep dives into mother sauces and whatnot. I have to think about that because, again, there's so many videos already out there. I'm trying to figure out what people haven't covered yet. And so I'll see, I'll think about it. I think, frankly, the other thing that I'm thinking of, too, is I really don't have a lot of energy these days to do anything. Like, I write one blog post a day and the rest of the day spent drinking. So, I don't know. Doing once a week is already, work enough for me. Maybe for now. So we'll see. I want to show you guys another technique. And this one came from another chef that I do admire. Grant Achatz from Alinea in Chicago. He showed this technique called flavor bouncing. I'll put the link in the notes later on. And this is how he comes up with a dish based on the flavors of that single dish, right? So what he does is he starts with a flavor in the middle. So let's say that we were going to start with pork, right? What he does then is picks another ingredient that'll go with pork. So if you think of pork, if I was thinking Filipino, I might go garlic, but let's just say for the sake of trying to choose something other than garlic and onions, because that's all I talk about, let's try beans, right? Pork and beans, very classic. What you then do is you pick a new ingredient that goes with beans, but will also go with pork. So if I said something like rice and beans, well, rice will go with beans, but it'll also go with pork. So that works. Fine. I could keep this connection. What'll go with rice? If I say rice and egg, rice and egg go together. Pork and egg, maybe if we made like a Chinese Filipino humba, which is a sweeter stew. Yeah, that'll go. But beans and eggs, I'm not really sure if I can do that yet. So that's where this kind of starts to break down. So you choose another ingredient, and that's what he calls flavor bouncing. I'm not very good at that. I don't really use it this way. I'm more on the story side. So use what you want. I think the point is that creativity is a lot more structured than people make it seem. And so when we're discussing, okay, how do I be more creative in my cooking? The biggest thing I can say is use constraints, make up constraints. There's a certain freedom when you create parameters within which to cook with. So, the first time we did a pop-up where I said, all right, only 2 ounces of meat, I think that was probably the one where people really started to think like, okay, if I can't use pork, what else can I use? Can I use jackfruit? Can I use tofu? What if we have 3 tofu dishes? Does that get boring? So, okay. Like I said, this is our last class. So what I'm going to do for the rest of the time, since we have about half an hour, is just kind of cook my Sunday meal. You guys already saw I'm simmering some bolognese on the stove. I might cook more salmon. I have leftover risotto from last week. So in a show of flexibility, I'm going to try to make arancini because that table moves. It's I don't want it to go bad, but I also don't want to eat leftover risotto. So, Oh, I do want to show one other thing, by the way. And this is kind of my exercise in creativity this week. If you look out my window, you'll see there are cherry blossoms across the street. And yes, I know people have been asking, like, are you sure they're cherry blossoms? Maybe they're peach blossoms. Yes, I checked the New York database. There's actually a database of New York trees, which ones are edible. Those are definitely Japanese cherry blossoms. So I've always been wanting to use them for so long, and I just didn't have the time or wherewithal to do them. So this is what I did. If you guys saw my photo yesterday, I picked off some of the blossoms and some of the leaves. These ones I'm going to make into a syrup for my cocktails later on. This one, shout out to Trevor, my roommate's friend. He told me to pack them in salt. And then I'm going to soak this in some fruit vinegar that I made like 3 years ago. And then dry them and see what happens to them. The leaves, I found a blog where they lightly cure them in a little bit of salt. This is going to end up tasting like Japanese plum later on. And I'm going to top this on rice. Maybe make some onigiri with it. And then these ones, which I picked off, and this is the problem with doing one-handed. Maybe when this is all over, I'll pay for someone to just like videotape me. These ones ended up drying on my desk. I was looking at them every day, just a little romanticism in my life. And this one I'm going to turn into a tea. So imagine that one tree out there and how many uses you can make out of that. Is it being creative? I guess, but all it took was a little bit of Google, and I said, okay, what can I do with these ingredients, right? But I think for those who are really trying to expand their repertoire a little bit and see where they can go, once you've practiced the first 3 sessions that we talked about, right? Familiarity, that makes you more confident. Being flexible, being efficient. Once you have a handle and are comfortable in the kitchen, you want to start playing around and saying, what can I, for example, meet Paolo, put my signatures on dishes. Try to use that structure. Let me know how it goes. I'm just going to grab one more thing, by the way. One sec. All right. Forgot to show this. This is one of our older menus. Oh my god, it's also backwards. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm just not really good at this. So this is one of our older menus, and I found inspiration in a particular artist or architect. I don't know what he was, Sol Liwit. So I wanted to do halo halo, which is a very classic Filipino dessert. It just means mixed. That's all it means. And I don't understand why people have to go like, there's only one way to make it. I really don't. So what I wanted to do with guests was give them the opportunity to do their own mixture. So we gave them ingredients, and this artist was well known for not actually drawing his own art. He would put down instructions, and people would recreate his art based on those instructions, and you come up with totally different art. So what I did was, at the very final course, we put all the ingredients on the table, and I said, here's how you should plate it. And it's up to you how you want to interpret these instructions. And once they did that, I said, you know what, post it on Instagram, and you tag us in it, and we'll see how creative people got. And the amount of creativity people came up with, the diners themselves, on what this should actually look like, was incredible, right? We had 40 different variations from 40 different guests. Oh yeah, that's actually where at that one, man. That was the good old days when we could just fuck around in the kitchen and make rent the next day. All right. Any questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna kind of shut up because, as you know, my roommate's gonna be doing a workout class in a bit, and I'm just gonna cook. So if you guys have any questions, just hit me up. I'm just gonna run the timer out on the rest of the show, and I'll put the recap on the blog if Instagram doesn't lose my thing again. Maybe from time to time I might make some commentary on what I'm making. What I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna make some Filipino style pickles. I'm gonna make some arancini. I might make some preserved lemons. So again, thinking in terms of components. All right, you know what? It was a good 4 weeks, guys. Thank you for joining in. Next week, I don't know if I'm going to do another one. If I will, I'm considering bringing on a guest so that we can actually do real life examples of the concepts that we talked about in the last 4 weeks. I'm going on confidence, flexibility, confidence, efficiency, flexibility, and today creativity. We'll see if I can get some proper folks to demo that for you. All right, and put on some music and get to cooking. Cool. Thanks, guys. All right. You guys ever listen to Peggy Goo? Man, she's like, I'm so mad I didn't get to see her live when she was here in New York, but she just did a live stream for Boiler Room the other day, and I've been listening to some house, so that is what I'm going to listen to today as we make our stuff. All right? All right. Oh, I can still see comments. All right, cool. I actually see this. Neat trick when you're making Filipino pickles. Instead of having to grate them or chop them super fine, I actually just use a vegetable peeler. I'm going to get this out of the way to make my strips. Right here. Right behind me. What's up? So you just take your vegetable peeler and I make strips like this. What I'm going to do is when I cook this in vinegar, you get these nice looking strips that look really good on a plate instead of having to like chop them. This is also much faster if I just, I could go like that. Yeah. Who is that, Abby? Yeah. Abby, come here real quick. Say hi. Look at that. Alright guys, so this is my roommate Brian. He's going to do a workout class on the other side. So once you're done being a fat ass with me, you can lose the fat on the other side.
What's up?
Hell no, I'm good. It's angel and demon, yeah, it's carbs on this side. What's the workout that starts with C? Crunches.
Crunches.
Yeah, carbs on this side, crunches on the other. That's how we're doing it. Pickling liquid. All right. Man, I didn't even put my fucking shit on. Today's gonna be a mess, y'all. Gonna steal some sakura blossoms, make a cheesecake. Yo, I was looking into that cheesecake thing. I realized if we're gonna make a cheesecake, we need a lot more sakura blossom, no? Cause the cheese flavor is so aggressive. Cardio. Natasha, I don't do cardio, man. I really don't. Alright, let me just check on my bolognese over here. It's starting to dry out. It's starting to dry out. You can see it. It's starting to dry out. So I have some tomatoes on the side if I want to refresh that. I'm going to put a little bit of... You guys remember I had a whole chicken last week? So the stock from that chicken, I'm going to put in here. No waste. No waste. We can't afford to be wasting things in this quarantine season. So wet that a little. For those who are buying canned bolognese, don't do it. Just don't do it. Like, it's ridiculously simple to make, and the extra time that you get into trying to create a softer, more creamy sauce. I'll put some milk in that later. I think it's worth the effort, and you don't have to be here the whole time. You know, I actually started this earlier in the morning, and I just kind of like left it while making breakfast and whatnot. We're gonna make some pickling liquid, so I'm gonna turn that heat on. Pickling liquid, I usually like to do about like 2-to-1 vinegar sugar, sometimes 1-to-1, and then I put some spices on it, and then make achara. Hi, Mario, you are popular, man, dude. Mario, you want to get in the show with me? I'm just gonna kill this vinegar. Just request, bro. I feel like we should just double team and open that restaurant like you said. Paolo and Mario. It's a black dude and a Chinese kid running an Italian restaurant. No one's gonna know. We'll finish this vinegar. So the typical Filipino pickling liquid is very sweet, and it's just vinegar and sugar, but what I like to do is, and make it different, actually, it's probably our most requested item at the pop-ups, is to add Arabic spices. Because again, growing up, that's how I like to do. You guys see that? You brought me a student? Bro, Mario, how are you going to bring a student on the last day? Put some sugar in there. Just kind of eyeball it. That should be enough. Alright, so what else am I going to put in my pickling liquid? Today, I want to do some whole spices. So, I will do maybe some cardamom. See a couple pieces in there. I might do a bit of clove. Maybe I'll skip the cinnamon this time. And if I had some coriander seeds, I would, but I don't. I think I have some cumin left. Yeah, I do have some cumin. Which Arabic spices? Yeah, cardamom, cloves, cumin. Normally, I would put some cinnamon too. Especially winter months when I want that like warmer flavor in there. And coriander, but I think I ran out of coriander for my last pop-up, and I haven't really been able to go shopping. So I'm just going to stick with that. Yeah, I might not even have cloves anymore. Times is rough, y'all. I'm running out of stuff in this household. So if y'all want to help a brother out, send some stuff over. Let's see what do we have here. Cream of tartar, caraway seeds. My room... Oh, I do have cloves. My roommate just said they're doing a Tabata workout, and all I heard was ciabatta bread. Bruh, you know how it is. It's hard out here. Okay. So that once that sugar dissolves in that vinegar, that's ready to pour onto my vegetables. Today, I don't have daikon radish, so I'm just going to use my leftover carrots, some onions. We'll flip back. Multiple. So that means for a solid 2.5 minutes, you're going to be relatively nonstop. Because 20 seconds on, I want the highest intensity. I want your heart rate to shoot up. 10 seconds, you're going to relax. Remember, this is only 2.5 minutes you're not here with us. Bro, I heard ciabatta, so I came over. I heard ciabatta. Paolo's like, Paolo just said, I heard there's a ciabatta, and then I came over. The fat ass of the group. Abby, is there a way to do a speaker view, so then it's just me? Alright, so once my carrot's kind of this, oftentimes I see people throwing these away. Don't throw these away. These are good for stocks. Don't throw these away. If I wanted to make a speaker view, do I have to be the host for that? Alright, here's my container for my pickles. I'm gonna get rid of these carrots. Once that pickle's done, I'll move on to arancini and let's see how far we go, yeah? No, the host did it. So we should automatically put speaker view, you'll see me as the main person. Great. Questions? Alright, we good, we good. Where we at? Am I tilted? Yeah, I'm totally tilted. Oh. A couple of notes. I think in future classes what I'm going to try to do is create some homework. I think waiting on, how many people are waiting for? Alright, so all you need for this setup is either a yoga mat or something that you can be sweating on. Less than 2 minutes. Utilizing for your workout. Done. We're gonna get into it from the get-go. So even the warm-up is gonna be Tabata style. I'll give a quick intro to the workout again when I think I need to make. Move this out of the way. Close to time. Mark, we're still waiting for Mark. Take a drink. Wait, Nick's not coming? Oh, no, oh, I should have texted. I actually created an entire workout so you can join us. Realize you guys can't see that. Well, Nick, I guess it's fine. Alright guys, everybody here? Hey guys. Alright. Alright. Alright, I'm gonna turn off my pickling liquid. I'm gonna show you guys what I did. Alright? Here's my pickles. Right, it's carrots, onions. My pickling liquid is just literally the vinegar and the spices that I've boiled so that the sugar is fully dissolved. And then I'm going to pour that in there. Alright, so I'm going to flip them around. Let's do this again. Sharp. Alright, so once this cools down, I'm going to bag this up so that the liquid totally covers all the pickles. And then I'm going to refrigerate that so that anytime I want to eat some achara, I could use that. People were asking about balance the other day. What you're going to want to use this for is if you're eating something really fatty, perfect for it. I'm just going to move that. No lifts. It's going to be like high intensity cardio. It's going to be great. I want your heart rate to be spiking to like at least over 170 on this. So I ain't trying to spike. No, no heartbeat's going up today. I'm going to drink. Alright, so really quickly, I'll send intro to the workout, so don't worry. I'm just going to set this aside. This is going to cool down. It's ready to go. For 30 minutes. Tabata is basically 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and we're going to be doing multiple Tabatas. Let's take a look at our bolognese, yeah? So likely, based on the program schedule, we're going to be doing one warm-up. That's reducing nicely. Importantly, I'm I've got some color in there. I was just commenting to my roommate how, a lot of these techniques can cross culture. Now that I know how to totally brown this meat, I should have been doing this for a lot of Filipino recipes that use ground beef. So when people make Filipino spaghetti, not putting your sauce right away, like get your meat brown before you put in your banana ketchup or whatever Filipino sauce you want to put, Del Monte package, whatever. I'm gonna just let that sit. Man, Farah, you need to go to bed. It's like 2 a.m. over there. Alright, we're gonna make some arancini now.
How you feel? I don't want you to go beyond where you think you are. Like, I don't want you to go above board, but
how loud is it?
It's gonna start there.
Let me know.
So,
I want to know.
the first part of the workout is gonna be 8 air squats, 8 push-ups. Okay? And what you're gonna hear is I'll get the timer. You're gonna hear it. You're gonna hear start. It's gonna be da da da. So that's like it's gonna be 3, 2, 1 start. I'll tell you when to start. And I'll give you a context when it's about 5 seconds left. I'll be doing the workout with you to hear the workout when it's done. 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off. So you can go max effort here, but remember, you only have 10 seconds of rest. And we're going to be doing this 5 times for the warm-up. Okay? Tell me when everyone's ready.
Cool. Alright. So here's what I'm going to do. Loud and clear like we're at to the cafe.
What?
Oh man, sorry. If you're new to this, it's not like this every single time, I swear. Leftover risotto. I have flour and panko. What we're gonna do is we're gonna roll the risotto together, coat them in the panko, fry them. So normally when you make arancini, you're putting mozzarella in the middle, and you're using egg to coat. But I don't have egg. Actually, I have one last egg, and I'm not about to use it on this recipe, so I'm just going to use regular milk, and let's see what happens. Okay, guys, let's all warm up. Yo, it's so true, though. Like, literally, all I do is eat and drink all day. And he does, like, 3 workouts a day. A day. Like, it's yin and yang out here. Alright, let me just wet my hands.
I know you guys can do it. I see your numbers. 12 and 12 is highly possible. I don't want you to diminish form at all. Remember, chest to deck. And then with air
I'm going to show y'all in a little bit. Alright, we're going to take a look.
And
although I got 10 minutes left of this live stream, so let's see what happens.
So you get to squat 12, push up. Boom.
Alright.
You don't need your shoes.
This gets messy on your hands, so it's okay if your hands get a little sticky. Don't worry about it. And just roll maybe I don't know. I don't want really super big arancini because I like that crisp. So I'm gonna just roll that into a ball. Let's see if I can squish this together. Mine's a little wet, this risotto, so if this falls apart, that's okay. Again, I'm just trying to find a use for these leftovers. So I'm gonna roll that in flour. You're gonna get a nice ball like that. Okay. It's pretty wet already, so I don't think it needs any milk. I'm just gonna coat it in panko right away. Right away. If you have mozzarella, put them in the middle of your arancini. That's really the traditional way to do it. You're supposed to get a gooey center, so when you get your ball, it's gonna kind of look like that, right? And then you're gonna fry this in oil. So I'm just going to place that on my chopping board since I don't really have room today.
10 seconds start.
And then you could just keep going.
5, 4,
Alright, you guys want to look?
Start.
We got timers and shit up in here. It's crazy. Yo, Brian, my people are doing the workout with you, man. For real, they're warming up too.
That's easy. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Rest. Alright, if that was too hard, lower it. If not, increase it. I'm going to go to 10 now. 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
I've never been more stressed making risotto balls. It's crazy. We're going to totally upload this. Maybe like New York Times will like watch this household and make us into YouTube stars or something.
5, 4, 3,
Alright,
2,
roll that in flour.
1. Come on, I want to see you guys get to 10. Get to 10.
Roll that in panko.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
what you don't want happening is all this panko falling apart when you're frying this. So you might see that I didn't put any egg on this stuff, but I would recommend you do that because that's what's going to bind your ingredients together, right? I'm only doing this because my risotto is already really wet.
Rest. Keep going, guys. Come on. 12. Get to 12 today. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The people who've been asking, again, Natasha and Nigel, you guys have been asking for more classes. Would you prefer recipe-driven classes?
3,
or would you prefer
1,
more guests? Or would you prefer more fundamentals? But when it comes to fundamentals, I don't know
3,
what other fundamentals I can give that aren't already on YouTube.
Now.
The bottom of this risotto is really wet, so I'm only gonna make one more and then call it a day. I think I'm gonna reheat this risotto and just eat it as is, maybe for dinner tonight with the salmon. I'll show you guys one more technique for fish right before we end this show.
That's it, guys.
Roll it
Alright,
in.
that's the first workout. That's a good warm up. Not bad. Great job, guys.
Man, this is really
So now
wet.
you're gonna get a sense of
This might not work, but you know what? That's the point of progressive play.
I want your heart rate to be racing right now. And yeah, you're gonna be out of breath, and it's totally fine.
I'm chilling.
Route count effectively, and just make sure that you're doing work for all 20 seconds. Okay, second workout.
All right, that's done. My arancini there. I'm gonna pack this up, clean up my station, and then we'll move on to salmon in a little bit. Yeah.
The workout is 6 burpees. And you don't have to jump. I just need you to come up. Just come up. Don't worry. You don't have to jump. 6 burpees to standing. 6 10 plyo lunges. Not each leg. Alternating. So it would be burpees.
Alright, my hand towel.
And then plyo lunges. Until you get to 10.
See if we got any questions up in here.
So it's like 1,
Are you
2,
deep frying or air fryer? Okay, so I'm gonna, basically what I'm gonna do is, on the skillet, I'm gonna put enough oil to cover each ball halfway. And so what that's gonna do is it's gonna cook the bottom without just sauteing it, right? So to make sure that crisp gets there. And then I rotate, just like you're making any man, I can't think of any like fried balls right now besides takoyaki, which doesn't use this. But if essentially you just want to get a skillet, fill it to oil so that you have enough oil in there to fry it halfway. If you haven't a deep fryer, like go for it. I don't know who has a deep fryer at home. I mean, I guess you could use a really deep pot and use oil, but I don't want to use that much oil. It's like I'm going to the grocery store like once every 2 weeks, once every week, so I'm not gonna do that. If you want to use an air fryer, I've never tried it with an air fryer. I don't know if it's gonna dry out the risotto. So because again, you have mozzarella in there, and so if you're gonna air fry this and it gets crispy outside, but that inside it doesn't really melt. You want that melt to be there. You want that golden brown outside. So I don't have an air fryer. If you want to try it out, let me know how it works. Let's see what that is, right? Pretend like his timer is. You know what, Jefecita? I don't know you, but I like you. I like you. Squats. Everyone copes in their own way. I prefer food. I'm just for everyone who's watching this on YouTube later on. I'm reading comments, so don't mind me, right? So my balls are gonna sit there. I'm gonna make salmon for lunch. I have this nice piece of salmon. This was the president of company I used to work for actually got this all the way from Alaska. So what I'm gonna do with this, because salmon has a very distinct flavor. Last week you guys saw me roast this. A lot of people will fry their salmon, put sauces on it. I want to taste the salmon. So what I'm gonna do is do a technique called empapillote, where I get parchment paper, I put my salmon in there with my flavorings, wrap it up, and then roast that. What that's gonna do is keep it from drying out, because again, it's wrapped inside parchment paper with citrus, for example, I put. And what that's also gonna do is make sure that flavor sticks into that salmon, because it's really enclosed in parchment paper. So I'm gonna wrap it up. You guys are gonna see. Do you guys want to see the workout? Let me know.
3, 2, Come on. Yeah, 6 is a lot. Don't go all the way to standing. Relax it. Go.
I'm gonna move our arancini to the side for now. So again, once you form your arancini balls, if you weren't here for last week where we made risotto, let me know if you guys want to actually see a risotto recipe, because the risotto I make is Chinese style. What that means is that the stock that I use has Chinese ingredients. It's pretty unique to what I do, so if you guys want to see that, I might do a tutorial video. Let me know. Ooh, and we got music. I got your soundtrack, Brian. All right, well, let me show you guys. Cause fuck it, we're gonna make this. We're gonna make today fun.
5 seconds. 4.
They're on rest mode.
2.
Hey.
1. Let's go.
All right, next week, guys, if you want a workout class, we're gonna move cooking class times so you can cook after you work out. I would like to get the ingredients in advance. Okay, all right. Val, you're the first one to say this in a while. The reason I didn't put ingredients up is because the last time I did this, I asked people, "Did you cook along?" And everyone's like, "No, I prefer to watch it, and then I'll cook along next time." Also, because the last 3 classes were about concepts, and even though I cooked something, I was more to demonstrate a certain idea than a recipe. So in the future, if I do recipes, for sure I can put ingredients down. I don't know if, but let me know. I want like, would you actually want to cook along with? Get straight up, bro.
Only gonna be 3 ciabattas, or we're gonna do a total of 6
All right.
ciabattas because we're gonna alternate.
Here's my salmon.
Wait, no, that's not true.
I have some leftover blood orange. I don't know what to do with it, so I'm gonna put that into this salmon.
Okay.
Man, this
movie is gonna consist of a simple.
this live stream is actually lasting a while, so that's cool. That's cool. I always feel like I'm running out of time. All right, put that charger back in there.
Flank, knee to elbow.
I'm gonna salt, little salt,
As many and as fast as you can do. I want
little
you
salt.
to be able to do 20 plus.
Put some blood orange.
Hit at least 18.
Right. This is kind of old. I've used this for some cocktails already, so there's not a lot of juice left. But I want to see what happens to that. And I don't want to overpower the salmon anyway. Don't do this, all right? I'm chopping my thing directly on the pan because I don't want to get my chopping board.
What?
Do not do that. All right, lemon juice.
It's almost like knee to elbow.
If I had some fresh herbs, like maybe tarragon, I would put it in here. But again, I really don't want to do any more to this fish so that I could taste the fish. So I'm going to keep it like that. I might salt it later on. Here's the technique, right? The liquid here is going to create steam to cook your salmon. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold. I don't know if you can see. We've got a minute left. Minute 42.
Second movement. What?
Fold your parchment paper over.
Yep.
Some people fold it like a pocket. I like to twist the ends, almost like a candy wrapper.
And then on your one side.
This is gonna go in the stove, in the oven for
Push.
however long it takes. I hate giving times because again, like I said in previous classes, your oven is gonna be different from mine. So I don't want to quote anything. You will know it's done because when you peek into it, that salmon is no longer gonna be totally pink. I would say as a guideline, maybe like 15 minutes at 375. But yeah, I'm gonna keep that in here. That's it. That's en papillote. It's just some fancy French term for in packet. I don't know. I don't speak French. Oh, okay. Since we have a minute left, that's about it for today. I hope it wasn't too chaotic for you guys. It is our last class anyway. Again, feel free to share this with your friends. Mario, thanks for bringing a new student along. If we do, I'm going to really rethink of how we want to do this for future weeks. I want to continue to provide you guys value. I want you guys to feel like I would totally pay for this outside. Like, that's why I'm really hesitant of just doing this every week, because I want you guys to feel like, holy shit, why is this free, right? That's the emotion I want to get, because that's, there's already many great people out there doing this kind of stuff, so I really don't want to like add to the noise. So yeah, share this with your friends. To those who've been continuing to Venmo, thank you so much. It's getting me my groceries. You're literally funding these classes, so thank you. And then see you guys next time. I'm gonna get a drink. I'll make sure that Instagram saves this video this time.
That's correct. So I'm gonna call them out.